Americans who visited Europe, what surprised you the most? How old everything is. I just haven't had that much sleep lately. Okay, what a mood. Trains. Glorious. Glorious trains. Jesus. Yes, we traveled around Europe on a train, and it was ducking glorious. Cheap and fast. Then we flew back to Chicago, and took a train home to St. Louis. What is a 6-hour drive ended up being a 10-hour train. Oh, did you get on the Texas Eagle? Question mark. Or the Texas Turtle as it is often called for how delayed it gets. At least originating from Chicago you are less late than them. If you get on in St. Louis to go to Chicago. I did that, and it was at least 4 hours behind when I got on in Alton IL. It might seem stupid, but in 1994 after first arriving to Germany for my first duty station in the army I was on a bus from the airport and Arnold Schwarzenegger was on a radio commercial. Like an idiot I was super surprised and impressed that he could speak German. It took me a couple days to realize street names were posted on buildings. Where I'm from street names are always on standalone poles. I couldn't find any street names. I was wondering how everyone finds their way around without street signs before facepumming and realizing the street name signs were affixed to the building corners. Depends heavily on the place. Sweden mainly has it on signposts, but also on buildings when available. I'm from Stockholm. It is almost only on walls here. No idiot warnings in public. It's assumed you won't do stupid, dangerous things and if you do, it's on you. Europe has fantastic public transportation. But what surprised me even more than that was how amazing the work-life balance is there. Most places are closed Sunday and stores close by 6-7 p.m. on weekdays. Everyone has more time for family and to enjoy life. I don't get it. This is absolutely not the case in many European countries. LMAO. Why do people say Europe as if it's a country? I used Europe like that because I didn't want to reference each country individually. I had the opportunity of visiting 17 countries in 1 year, and I was able to travel to a vast majority of them where people enjoyed life more than in the United States. Was merely just saying the countries in Europe generally have a healthier work-life balance. Air conditioning. Even when they have it, it's not on full blast like here in the US. I went to Germany in June. Beautiful, but can get pretty warm. Took my body a few days to adjust to the time zone and the temperature culture. But other than that, 10/10ths would go again. The only thing I don't like about visiting Germany is the lack of AC. Germans seem to think I'm weak for this. But I think they've just been fooled by Big Sprudel into buying more water to compensate. I reckon with climate change taking up a reasonable summer, you will have many people and places purchase AC in the coming decade. I know that's true here in the Netherlands. How friendly people outside tourist areas are compared to close to major attractions. I'm from North America and I live in France. The French are generally friendly, especially in Bretagne and the south. Parisians on the other hand. Parisians are the dumpster fire of France. Other Frenchies are lovable people. As plastic bottles get bigger in volume, they get taller rather than wider, and that's for a reason. It helps to keep the gas in sparkling drinks, less surface, less CO2 loss. This way they don't get stale so fast. Also, much easier to hold and drink out of a taller bottle than a thicker one. I was surprised that normal whole foods, like raw carrots and blueberries, tasted slightly different. I don't know why. For me it was chicken. It actually had flavor. It truly is not in Texas. The European version of Paris and London are much better. People do not eat cheese with everything. In Europe cheese is a dish. In America, cheese is a condiment. Where in Europe did you visit? Cheese, Parmesan, is definitely a condiment. Not a lot of food portions. I can see why we are all so fat. A friend studied overseas, Italy, I think, for a semester. Flew back to the USA and was blown away with how, his words, totally the king for this country is. I had the same experience when I honeymooned in Italy. After a few days I was like, hey, nobody here is fat. Apostrophe. It wasn't something I thought to look for. It was just noticeable. Visiting Rome. Utter and total disregard for traffic laws. Cars stop at lights. Scooters cut lanes and go straight through. Cars. Scooters all over the sidewalks. Intense graffiti. Inside and outside of every train every inch was covered. Sharpie tags on marble sculptures and buildings. Wait till you see Athens. It's the Wild West there in terms of traffic. Wait till you come to Naples. If Athens is the Wild West, Naples is the Wilder West. I grew up in a town that dates back to colonial times. First non-Indian inhabitants arrived in the late 1600s, and historic preservation was always a priority. We actually called the historical society the Hysterical Society, because they would freak out over any proposal that would have changed the character of the town. So I thought I knew got to Europe, and saw old, like, good old hometown has absolutely nothing on any small town I visited there. Also, the freaking castles. Damn. And how many people spoke at least some English. And at how colorful the homes were. And, bidets. Everywhere. Had no idea how to use one at the time. Now have a washlet. And wouldn't live without one. This is so fun to me, because I grew up on a farm in Germany, and one building was literally older than the US. Think it was about 260 years old. The local church was built in the 1670s. Shortly before the legendary pirate Blackbeard was born. The cathedral one city over was built 200 years before Columbus landed on the American continent. That one was already the third iteration. Built on the foundation of much older previous churches. The first one dating back to the year 805. Cars are optional. If you are in an urban area, there is usually good public transport, though the quality varies in different countries and cities. So if you live in a city or its suburbs, you can get by without a car. If you live in a rural area, then obviously it is a bit more difficult. Not that it was weird or anything, but everyone either walks or bikes everywhere. Here in America, if you go anywhere you are pretty much always driving. It was nice to see people actually out all the time. I won't say shocked, but stuck out. How old things are. Just walking around UP, but historically significant things. The cultural shift of not kissing the customer's ass. I like this. America is fucked up in that area. How beautiful and preserved natural areas are. How much culture is available for free or donations. In the States, many museums charge absurd prices and developers slap can doss up everywhere scenic. It's weird how we treat our history. Our local big castle is Elmwick. Harry Potter location. 700 plus years old. The Duke's ancestor is in Shakespeare, Harry Hotspur Percy. But you can go in their living room and marvel at their great big fucker flat screen. Also they have a big slab of cheap beer on the table. Driving for the first time. It was holy fuck. Why are the roads so goddamn narrow? I get it, I suppose. We had space for days in nap, whereas most of Europe was developed up at a time when automobiles weren't even a concept. Narrower roads are statistically safer, though. Some places here did build wide roads, but that was a short-lived fad and many of those roads have been narrowed again. How easy it is to travel between countries, and how quick you can be in another country. The train system is great. Cries in Brexit. Everything's so old. I'm from the west coast, so all the history here was kinda erased now. Also, my cousin and I, both 12 or 13, were offered wine, which was weird. Also, Switzerland speaks 3 languages, and it's like a tiny country. Crazy. And the climate was pretty similar to where I live. And the streets were so thin. Where were you when you were offered wine? And don't worry, Switzerland is weird. Lumeo, I was in Switzerland. I don't remember what city, but apparently Switzerland is weird. Offering kids wine. Is that English? We are in England, so, I mean, it has to be, right? But what the duck did this fool just say? Probably not the most surprising thing, but something that comes to mind. Storefronts that specifically sell American junk food as a novelty, or maybe for tourists who can't seem to survive a vacation without a Twinkie. It bothers me that Twinkies are still that popular considering how god awful they are. Drinking culture in the UK. If you have a beer at noon in America on a Tuesday, you get weird looks. Over there it's not about getting wasted, but quality time with friends and members of the community. It was eye-opening. Also public transit. Thief got it down to a T. The first time I flew to London I was surprised at how good the food was. I've read the stories about bad British food, but that wasn't the case. Everything was excellent. The quality of ingredients seemed superior. Even fast food places like Leon and Pret were really good. I also loved Waitrose. What a great grocery chain. People who shop in Waitrose are generally stereotypes as being middle CL but were twiffles BTW. Most people shop in like Aldi or Tesco or something. You pay for drinking water and refills at restaurants. You must ask for tap water. No ice in the drinks at restaurants. Didn't bother me, but it took some getting used to. Honestly, I don't know where you guys are going, but each time I go to a restaurant they have how relaxed people are. People sit at a cafe just to sit and drink a coffee or smoke. It's amazing what not having to work 3 jobs to afford rent, being crushed under the weight of student loans, or not have to worry about getting sick because you have universal healthcare will do for your mental health. I love this question and have so many things I want to say, but no one ever reads them, haha. There was a definite noticeable difference between how heavy everyone is in the United States versus Europe. It seems like everything in the US is bigger. The roads, the buildings, the toilet paper, the people, etc. The thing that I found weird when visiting the States was how high the water level is in the toilet. Same. First time I saw that I thought it was clogged. That people speak more than one language and can speak better English than some Americans, and will then apologize for their poor English. Reddit moment. Some guy makes a comment in perfect English, and then they conclude saying, "Sorry for my poor English. I know 20 different languages." The weight of history. Edinburgh really hit home for me just how young our country is. Walking into a pub that's been there longer than the US has existed, and then 3 more that had been there even longer prior to leaving, was something truly surreal. You can feel and see just how old everything is, and how much it's changed and adapted to the times. Narrow alleyways you'd never see in the US. Strange roads that wouldn't make sense in modern city planning. Buildings constructed in a manner, and with materials and aesthetics, that just don't exist in the US, etc. It really impresses upon you how much of a blip in human history the United States really is. ATM. And the castle was ducking awesome. So there's that too. Listening to the historians there slag off William Wallace was enlightening. Not in Europe, but in China. I felt what I call temporal smallness. There is a temple a few minutes walk away from where I live that has been there for almost 1300 years. I have been to 2000, 2500 years old ruins in my country, but being in a living building that has stood for more than twice the age of the oldest colonial buildings in my country made me feel small. Not small in a physical sense, since the building is not that big, but small in the sense that my 22 years at that time, and all the years I still have to live, are nothing compared to the time that building has been there. That there aren't daily fatal crashes on the Amalfi Coast. How many people smoked? I can go weeks anymore without seeing someone smoking in the US. Wish it would be fewer. Fucking hell. I hate the smell of smoke. How fresh the food really is. I'm a foodie and love to eat out at restaurants and such, but I will say that sometimes my stomach doesn't always agree with me. I know some things I should stay away from, mainly dairy and carbs, but sometimes I just say F it and eat whatever I want. I went to Rome, Italy for a week for a college CL but I was taking, and I was ready to indulge on lots of pizza and pasta. We pretty much ate out at restaurants for every meal aside from the small breakfast buffet in our hotel each morning. I was so surprised how the food truly didn't affect my stomach at all. I never really suffered stomach aches or bloating and whatnot, which is very common for me. I'm from the US. I think it was because of how fresh all the food is, as I don't believe they use any crap fillers or preservatives. I had some of the best food of my life there. People seemed a lot nicer to me, more accommodating. I remember seeing some guy have a run-in with the police in the Netherlands, and was completely taken back at how civil the situation was. Yeah, out of Europe uses a police by consent approach which has a lot of major benefits. In the UK I would stop a policeman/woman to ask for help if I had an issue. In the USA now I skirt around them. The tiny cars. Walking down the street I really just want to try and roll one over by hand. Since then I actually got a Fiat 500 an. Spoilers. You cannot just roll one over by hand. And if you succeed with mechanical advantage, your wife gets really angry instead of celebrating your successes. Apparently Amsterdam used to have a real problem with people parking their Smart 4 by the river and coming back to find that someone's dumped it in. The amount of people that smoke. The amount of young people that smoke. I was just astonished that there are vending machines that contain cigarettes. Probably because of Reddit, I expected people to take an instant dislike to me for being an American traveling abroad, and found quite the opposite. This was in France, especially, but to a lesser extent the UK as well. It is a common misconception. Bad experiences get much more traction than good ones, so this idea gets circulated more. Most Americans who have actually been to Europe do have good experiences. They keep coming, so they must like it. I went to England. They have more pubs on one street than Rotten Runners in the whole country, I swear. Yeah, it's kinda normal to have like 2 to 6 pubs in a single village. That's why people do pub crawls, where they just go between them all. I expected the small meal portions, but I did not expect the itty bitty bathrooms and floor to ceiling stalls. And like, actual doors to those stalls. Never before had I had so much privacy in a public toilet. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe for more videos.